Verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila chapter 4. Here's another one. Radha Purna Shakti Krishna Purna Shaktiman Dvivastu Bedanai Shastra Paraman. Sri Radha is the full power, and Lord Krishna is the possessor of full power. The two are not different, as evidenced by the revealed scriptures. The two are not different, as evidenced by the revealed scriptures. Remember from yesterday, this celebrated verse, very, very important and celebrated verse, in the very beginning part, written by Swarup Damodar, describing Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikriti Ladini Shakti Asmat Ekatmanav Apibhuve Pura Deha Beda Gatautal. They've eternally met. They're one entity, Ekatmanav, eternally manifest in two dehas, two forms, but one entity. It's one entity. That's what this verse is saying in Adi Lila. She's the power, Purna Shakti, and Krishna is the Shaktiman, Purna Shaktiman. Dvi Vastu Bedha Nai. There's no difference between the two. And here's a similar verse, not the same, but it's from Padma Purana. These understandings spoken by Swarup Damodar that make a foundation for Chaitanya Charitamrita's understanding of Radharani has a scriptural basis here in Padma Purana. There's other sources. Here's the verse from Padma Purana. Aham cha Lalita Devi Radhika Yachat Giyate. Aham cha Vasudevakyo Nityam Karma Kalatmakaha. So let's just take that first verse. Nityam Kama Kalatmakaha. I had to look it up. What Kama and Kala. Here's some of the Sanskrit meanings. Kala, one of the meanings of Kala, is wife. Kama Kalatmika. The one who is called Radhika, I am also known as Lalita. Sometimes Radhika is known by that name. Of course, it's one of her dearest gopis, but sometimes Radha is also known by that name. I am also the eternal Kama Kalatmika Vasudeva. She's the wife of Vasudeva, Vasudeva Krishna. She's both. She's Shakti and Purna Shaktiman. I am really Ramani Swarup. Ramani Swarup, the female Swarup. I am Sanatani Ramani, eternal lady. I am Lalita and I'm also Krishna in the male form. O Narada, I am telling you the truth. There is no difference between me and Krishna. Now there's difference and there's no difference. Mystery, isn't it? We like mystery. Better than Sherlock Holmes or any Harry Potter or, any other kind of mystery. It's a transcendental mystery. And how to understand transcendental mystery? Well, it's by service. And service while meditating upon the teachings of transcendence that we hear through this process of disciplic succession. We have to have the right sources to hear from. But then we can gradually awaken, that's what we're attempting to do at least, in anticipation of Radharani's appearance day, hearing about her from proper sources. I got a few messages from yesterday from people who heard the class, the Rupa Goswami's description of Radharani's appearance, and they said they had to listen to the class 3 times to follow it. So it's involved. So the truths about Radha and Krishna are involved, And we can just keep it simple. She's the spiritual Shakti, the Hladini Shakti potency, and there's Krishna, and they're eternally connected. That's simple. Then you start going into it, diving into it more and more and more. And then there's wonderful exchanges of loving pastimes between them. And the one we just heard, the lengthy one, was Krishna wanting to show Radharani the truths that he had spoken, that she is even greater than Mother Yasoda. Now, that can be disturbing because, how can you compare anyone with Mother Yasoda? How can you compare anyone with anyone? It sounds like material people do. But in the teachings given to us in disciplic succession, on the one hand, they're equal. On the other hand, they're different. And the difference is in terms of rasa. And the distinctions in terms of rasa are not material. It doesn't place one in the position of being materially discriminating and favoring this over that, and those kinds of things that are in the category of offense. We don't do those things. But in terms of particularly following our great acharyas and spiritual authorities, distinctions are in terms of rasa. It's exactly what Lord Chaitanya's teaching is. So in keeping it really simple, nice to keep things simple. There's perfect, then there's more perfect, and there's most perfect. I remember just a little sharing long ago, somebody that was from a Sri Vaishnava background. And when they heard that the love of Radha is in the most perfect category, they became like angry. And they didn't slam their fist on the table, but emotionally that's what they did. How can you say there's anyone greater than Rukmini? Like, they were offended. So it's not to say, it's perfect, more perfect, most perfect. It's in terms of rasa and the intimacy of love. So it made a strong impression how they respond. It was nice. I mean, their emotional response was nice because they had a very, very strong affinity for the love of Rukmini for Krishna, which is very nice. And to say there's something that goes even beyond the love of Rukmini for Krishna was disturbing to their mind. But it's in terms of rasa, the intimacy of Srimati Radharani is superlative. Now, you go the other direction, you can say, well, they're the same. They're all expansions of her. And if you one day become spiritually elevated, more than today, someday you become spiritually elevated, you may have an interest. I don't recommend you do it right away because your head will spin. But you can read the Lita Madhava and Dagda Madhava. And you get a sense from Rupa Goswami's writings, because he's very elegant and eloquent, that the love, that Rukmini, on the one hand, is nothing but Chandravali in Krishna's Leela. But the intimacy of love of Krishna in his dealings with the gopis in Vrindavan is superlative in terms of rasa, having everything to do with this parakya rasa. Anyway, it gets this very high subject matter. Talk about, because this is Radharani's appearance day, so we're talking about Radharani. And it's really elevated subject matter. And most of us are like, down here talking about a very elevated subject matter. So how can we enter into, how can we relate to, how can we not just get spun out by and confused by or whatever? One thing for sure, there are elevated stages of Krishna bhakti that our great acharyas have attained, and they're, in one sense, liberally, very mercifully sharing with people that are way down here, like us. So we're hearing, so if you don't understand everything, it's quite okay. Get your telescope out and just appreciate and hear with the appreciation that there are very elevated stages of Krishna bhakti that our acharyas are very kind to bestow upon us. And when you come to the temple and you see Radha Krishna, Radha Shyamasundar, Radha Madhava in their deity form, we worship in the mood of awe and veneration. At the same time, the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by his mercy, are being invited into yet another dimension, another intimacy aspect, which one is to then cultivate internally, primarily by this hearing and meditating upon, not trying to understand by speculative, but trying to understand by devotional method. Hearing and appreciating the nature of Krishna. You know, it's Balaram's appearance and Krishna's appearance and Radharani's appearance. It keeps getting higher and higher. So there are truths that we're given access to by Lord Chaitanya's mercy and the followers of Lord Chaitanya and their mercy to understand something more than what we understood yesterday about God. The fullness of that picture is way beyond us. So we're being kindly introduced, privileged to be introduced to very elevated subject matter. And if you can't understand it all, it's quite okay. You get a lot of company of people that also don't understand it all. Quite okay. But appreciate it. Try to appreciate it. And next time you come to the temple and see Radha Madhava or Radha Shyamasundar or see their photos, or we all understand we're being prepared for a life that's beyond the idea of negation of things of this world. It's beyond opulence. It's into the realm of sweetness that knows no limit, no boundaries. That's what we're being introduced to. And Prabhupada was doing it all over the world. No, he didn't have these pastimes all over the world. He kept it very simple, for sure, for the general audience. At the same time, the general audience will naturally want further and further and further progressively. And so we're going to continue 4 more classes on this progressive stages of Radharani's glories and wonderful activities and her loving exchanges with Krishna and how they enjoy together the pleasure potency of Krishna and the enjoyer of Krishna's pleasure potency. Makes us want to serve the divine couple. Bottom line. See if there's any comments or questions.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you for such a nice class, Maharaj. I was just thinking this Madhurya Ras, the loving exchange between Radharani and Lord Krishna. So did this come into our understanding only because it was given to us by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the follower, or it used to exist even earlier in some form or the other?
Was it present before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is your question?
I mean, was it talked about? Or
Yes. Yes. Long history. Not in the same way, but long history. Yes. Yes.
This is from yesterday's class, Maharaj, yesterday evening class. Same topic. Did Rupa Goswami gives any?
I'm pausing for. Let me go back to your question. I forget when it was. You know who Hari Parshad Prabhu is. So he gave a class on Radharani where he went back and back and back and back because has that capacity. Where was Radharani spoken about in other sampradayas and in time and back and very specific verses. He said he spent some time searching for those verses where Radharani is glorified, going back and back and back by name and in substance as well as name. So nothing new. Detail and the flavor is special, but some of these verses, I have the collection of some of those verses, very specific, very elevated, very clear, that they have some special understanding of Srimati Radharani, long before Lord Chaitanya. Yes.
So in the Lalita Madhava, does Rupa Goswami gives more context, Maharaj? Like yesterday's pastime, like end of the class, you were reading about that is the exchange between
Purnamasi and Gargi.
So he talks about lot of things, and then
Lots of things.
And then about like Rukmini, Satyabhama is same as Chandravali, right?
Rukmini is the same as Chandravali, and Satyabhama is the same as Radharani.
So
the counterpart.
Yeah. So because the discussion, it looks like it happened in Vrindavan when Krishna was there. I don't know. I was just trying to see when that discussion between Purnamasi and Gargi happens. Because the Dwaraka pastimes happens much later.
Yes, it happens much later. So what's your point? Are you just commenting, or are you making a point, or?
No, the question, Maharaj.
What's the question?
The question is, when is that, does Rupa Goswami...
How does she know? How does Purnamasi know?
No.
Something that didn't happen yet?
Yeah, something.
Something like that? I'm not familiar enough with either Lalita Mada or Vidagdha Madhava to be able to answer that, to say, in terms of chronology, at what point, in what chronological point of Krishna's pastimes was this being narrated? So I can't give you a definitive answer. I can ask persons that are more knowledgeable in that literature, but there are some really simple options are who she is. She can know, like other qualified persons can know, past, present, future. So it could be she's narrating something that happened in the past. A lot has to do with the tense of the Sanskrit, but even the tense of the Sanskrit be narrated as if it's happening going into the future, but it was being narrated from the past. So those are two possibilities. She's looking into the future, or it happened in the past and she's looking back and describing as if it's not yet happened. And then this, and then this, and then this. You were around the corner. I didn't see you. Okay.
Maharaj, thank you. I was thinking about Radharani's pastimes are so sweet,
Yes.
but it came into existence in our Gaudiya Sampradaya. That means came only from Madhavendra Puri. We came to know about Radharani, right? He only established it. Radharani is Krishna's worship. So before that, is that Madhvacharya didn't know about it? Or why is it not that worship was not there? Till only Rama Madhavendra Puri only started it.
Okay. Let's go. Your question is similar to his question. And Madhavendra Puri, Madhvacharya didn't manifest because it wasn't Krishna's desire for him to manifest. Now, what knowledge did he have? We don't know, because he didn't write about it. He didn't write about it. He didn't write against it. He didn't write for it. He didn't write about it. But it's part of the unfolding of preparing for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance, that in his disciplic line, Madhvacharya manifested it. He manifested in a particular manner, in a particular mood, at a particular stage of his mature bhakti life. And then to Ishwara Puri, and then to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But, prior to Madhvacharya, this is back to his question, Radharani is named specifically, and her mood of love, and some of her pastimes. Maybe I'll spend some time tomorrow. When I did this before, it took like hours. To get into to do what Hari Parshad has done for us. I don't know how long it takes him, but I took his work and made screenshots and tried. And anyway, I could try to recreate it, or maybe just provide you with the link. Maybe that's the easiest thing. I can provide you with the link, and then you can distribute to others, of his class on where Radharani is mentioned, going way, way, way back. So specifically, your question was about Madhvacharya, and it wasn't Krishna's plan that Madhvacharya reveal this. It was Krishna's plan that Madhavendra Puri, and then Ishwara Puri, then Mahaprabhu. But she wasn't spoken about like Mahaprabhu and his followers have done. But she wasn't unknown. There's scriptural foundation for her being known. However they knew, I don't know. But they're verses written by great acharyas, going way back. Does that respond to your question?
Yes. The past time what you narrated about so sweet, but I never heard past many years. Is this new to us, or?
Well, you have to ask that question of Bhakti Purushottam Swami. I mean, my understanding from my relationship with him is he spent quite a bit of time, like, a decade or more, having an attraction for Radha Katha, and gather, and then he told me, very careful about, the pristine, taking the original thing and not just, because things get distorted over time. So he was very careful. It doesn't mean it's without flaw, but these are narrations that are not often heard, but he gathered some of them. And there, his book is filled with this reference, that reference, the other reference, Krishna Sandarbha, things that are very specific and quite esoteric, and not everybody's interested in things that are very specific and quite esoteric. They want the bread and butter. Some people are too much interested in esoteric without even some concern about what the source is. So he was careful and gathered and checked with senior Vaishnavas that, would this be appropriate to go into my book? So he was careful. So your comment is, I've never heard this before. Welcome to the club. And it's not something we're likely to hear many, many, many times. There's the things we hear many, many times we've heard already. Like the Pearl Pastime. But that's a Raghunath Das Goswami book, and we're going to hear about that tomorrow evening. That's nice. Yeah. Once a year at least. Someone else? Yes.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. This is just some contemplation and practical application question, maybe typical of my questions. As we are hearing, particularly Rupa Goswami's Lalita Madhava description, this is a revelation to him, right? Not like scriptural or something. Is that understanding correct?
Combination.
Yeah, I was actually trying to connect that, Guru Maharaj. I was thinking of the last statement that you read last evening of Gargi. It must be so. I don't understand right now, but maybe one day I will understand.
Yeah. That's the same for all of us.
Yeah. I'm actually having...
aside from understanding it, just like putting all the others so it flows. Like this, and then that. Sherlock Holmes and figuring out how the puzzle pieces fit together. What to speak of understand it. So keep going.
This is obviously very highly elevated topic.
Yes.
But I'm also connecting that to my regular Srimad Bhagavatam reading. Sometimes few things that Srila Prabhupada mentions, I just cannot decipher or
That's okay.
So for some time I was so disturbed and I was like, okay, how can this be or whatever. But now I'm thinking with my regard for who Srila Prabhupada or the personality, I'll just accept just based on that relationship and regard.
Yeah.
And in the course
and Rupa Goswami, same thing. Now Prabhupada pablamized everything. So that his audience that didn't know how to digest things could digest things because it was pablamized. But then in Chaitanya Charitamrita, he mentions by name different authors and different books and says, it'll be good for some Vaishnav to read these literatures. He didn't discourage, he just pablamized and, understood his audience and according to... So, in going through these things about Radharani, one could weigh, is it a good idea? In an audience like this, is it a good idea or not? And somebody might say, it's not a good idea. Because they're new people and they may get spun out. Or etc. Get a wrong understanding. Or feel badly about themselves. What's the use because I'm, etc., etc. There's something on the side of don't go into all this. And I lean in the obviously I'm leading in the direction of it's nice to get an idea of where the train is going when you get on the train. Even the destination is far away. And then be honest with yourself about where you are, and don't imitate those, positions beyond where you are. But, this is a very amazing journey. And we have long distance to go. Let me become in my japa tomorrow morning, and more mindful in my worship of my deity tomorrow morning, and so forth. Because this is a wonderful journey, and I want to be able to complete it. So there's reason. There's something on both sides of the pan scale. Something else? Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Again, very similar in the same lines, the question. I always wondered why in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lalita Madhava and Vidakta Madhava are referred to as dramas.
He just chose. He was inspired by Krishna, and that's how he chose. Why did Jiva Goswami write in Champu style? It suited him. Sometimes it's prose, sometimes it's poetry, sometimes it's direct quote from scripture, sometimes it's just like a poetic narration, and it suited his purposes and his style and his mood, and so he selected that out of the options. And Rupa Goswami, it was a drama as far as I understand it, it was a drama from the very beginning. And it was his composition, but it wasn't just pulled out of the air, or entirely just his realization and with no scriptural foundation supported basis. But the things that were explained in a way that suited the topic he wanted to discuss. A big part of the topic he wanted to discuss we touched on already, which was these three classifications of Krishna's lovers are all expansions of Radharani. So taking that understanding and then expanding it in details and details and details with scriptural reference and his realization and combination. So we have very elevated acharyas to follow. And it's very important as followers of Lord Chaitanya to have all faith in Rupa Goswami. Say it negatively. If one doesn't have all faith in Rupa Goswami, you're not going to make much progress. Or to the degree that you have progress, you can make progress. To the degree you have faith, you can make progress. And it's something we just can't understand. And that's quite okay. Keep going. When I first read Bhagavad Gita, lots of things I didn't understand. And then read it again and read it again and read it again, and slowly I started to understand things that I couldn't understand before, and so forth. And the undergraduate and graduate and postgraduate. Online?
This is from Snehavalli Mataji. This question is from yesterday's class as well. We heard Radharani was kidnapped by Putana and had been killed by mantras. I would like to know.
Radharani was kidnapped by Putana, and then?
Her killed by mantras.
And then what?
She got killed by mantras. Putana.
She got what by mantras?
Killed.
Putana.
Yeah.
Was killed by mantras.
Yes.
Okay.
I would like to know if Rupa Goswami has explained Putana Leela with Krishna also. In other words, how can we reconcile Putana Leela with Krishna and Putana killing after kidnapping Radharani?
I don't know. Next. Anything else in the room? Yes? You got to press the button the right way.
Thank you for the wonderful class. Maharaj, I was thinking if you could kindly elaborate more on the difference between Bhauma Vrindavan versus Golok Vrindavan. They're considered non-different.
Yes.
But
But there are differences.
yes, I was wondering.
And you want to know what the differences have to do with revealing ages of Krishna and pastimes of Krishna connected with those ages that are not displayed in Goloka. There's the bhava, but not the manifestation of the lila of Krishna taking birth, childhood pastimes, etc. There's the mood of love, but not the exhibition of the lila. Similar with demons. There's no demons in Goloka, but there's the bhava, and thus the intensification of shelter taking in Krishna because of the sense of danger. That's a simple way of expressing. Because the childhood pastimes are displayed in Krishna's Bhoma Lila, and the childhood pastimes, how many chapters are made up of the childhood pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan? A lot of chapters. And then what happens after Krishna leaves Vrindavan from 16 to 125, 12 to 125, there's chapters, but it's the childhood pastimes are packed because they're so sweet and so wonderful. For devotees. For the non-devotees, then it's just fiction. But so, there's a sweetness in those Vrindavan pastimes that are the childhood of Krishna that's not there in Goloka. Although there's the bhava, the mood of love. I'm Krishna's mother. I'm Krishna's father, etc. All right? Anything else online? We're done? Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.